Hello, welcome in or welcome back to my channel. My name is Deb from DG Reads, and it's time for the Romantasyathon Starfall Ball. When I say it's time for Romantasyathon, I mean it's almost time for Romantasyathon. It is actually Friday afternoon. I went home early from work to go get some vaccines, and historically I don't necessarily sleep my best after vaccines. I don't necessarily feel my most energetic Saturday morning after vaccines. So I decided I'd do my intro now, give you my TBR, and then I can be a bum in bed in my PJs tomorrow morning and not have to worry about filming. That's my theory anyway. First things first, this is of course the fantastic Romantasyathon week-long readathon that has us preparing for the Starfall Ball next Saturday, and this is hosted by Tori from Tori Between Pages. I have been eagerly looking forward to reading a bunch of Romantasy this week. It's the perfect time for it in February, and I especially have several sequels that I am dying to finally read. A few of them were on my prompt ball TBR, and I can't tell you the number of times I had to talk myself out of starting them early. So without further ado, let me grab the books and give you my TBR and what prompts I'm aiming to complete this week. When it comes to what to wear to the ball, my first thought was a black cover because a little black dress, absolutely. But I've always kind of been drawn to really pretty deep green dresses, and that's what one of my favorite dresses from high school dances was, and to this day that still stands out in my mind as a dress that I love. So I decided to go with a green cover for a green dress. So for my green cover, I have This Will Be Fun by E.B. Asher. This is one that I got onto my prompt ball TBR for this month for a found family prompt. And this is former lovers, no longer together, but way back when they saved the world, the realm, the something, and now they have to bring kind of the band back together to confront some sort of other threat, possibly. This is going off memory, so I could be way off, but this is one I've been looking forward to. I received it in one of my Once Upon a Book Club boxes, and that means I get to open some gifts as I'm reading this, so this should be a good cozy time for my weekend reading. In terms of who to bring with me to the ball, I decided to go with a book that actually works for a couple of the prompts. It is a backlist book, but I think I'm counting it as a sequel. So this is another one I got on my prompt ball TBR, This Cursed Light by Emily Theed, and this one was on my list for a weapon on the cover because we do have some stabby going on in here. I read the first book, This Vicious Grace, in my weekend challenge recently, and I had a really good time with it, so I've been eager to finish the series off with the sequel. In this series, we're following Alessa. She has a type of magic that enhances her partner's magic, but in the first book, she had been through 3 partners because she kept killing them when she tried to use her magic with them. So things ensued from there. This one picks up where that one left off. I'm eager to see how the story ends. For my background, I decided to use the prompt of a book involving witches, and for this I'm very excited to be reading Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. This one comes out this week, I believe on the 18th, which means that it is a brand new release. It's a buddy read also for the Patreon of Mel from Melanor Reads, and this one follows Heartless Hunter or Crimson Moth, depending on which version of the book that you have. For a trope with your date, I love a good enemies to lovers book, so I believe this one counts. I have The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen, and this is one that I have had on my list to get to for a very long time, and it's one that I have on my bingo cards as a friend recommendation because several people have talked about this book and recommended it, and I'm very eager to pick it up. I know with this series we are following a warrior princess. She's been raised to believe that the king is her enemy and that she's the one to bring this king down, and I'm assuming there's a twist to that and she determines maybe he's not her enemy. I don't know. I will find out. In terms of what weapon to bring, the prompt that I'm going to use for this category is the recommendation from a friend, and that's because I plan to read The City of Mirth and Malice by Alexis L. Menard, and this one I am counting as a friend recommendation because I just read the first book specifically for my reading favorites of some of my favorite booktubers, and this series was recommended pretty much by all of them. So I think it definitely will work for this category. This is set in a steampunk world. We have magic and we have science, and those two things are maybe partially at odds, but also working in tandem as well. We have different sides of the city. We have a lot of really good banter between these main characters, and I've been eagerly waiting to pick up the second and final book in this duology. And then last but not least, for a bonus prompt, I am planning to read To Shatter the Night by Catherine Quinn. This is the sequel to Kill a Shadow, which is again something I read during my recent weekend reading challenge, and this is the second book that I immediately went ahead and ordered after finishing that first one, and want to finish off this duology as well. This would work for 2 of the prompts actually under bonus. It's highly anticipated because it's one I am eager to read, but also I most likely will wind up consuming this by audio since I do have a lot of crocheting to do this week, and the listen to an audiobook is another one of the bonus prompts. So I can knock out 2 with this book. I may pick up something entirely different. Who knows? With this week ahead, I have so much that I'm looking forward to. For one thing, it is Friday and it's a 3-day weekend, and I am so excited for that part of it. I have started on week 2 of my crochet along. If you saw my cozy weekend reading vlog that was hearts themed, I started the blanket during that particular vlog and made some progress. I didn't quite finish week 1 within week 1, but I was close, and I am currently working on week 2, so I will at some point show you what that's looking like. And then next weekend I get my hair cut finally on Saturday, the day of the ball, because of course you need good hair when you're going to a fictional ball, right? And then on Sunday, after this particular readathon ends, I do have a related adventure because I'm going to a Penn Cole event in Los Angeles, and I do get to meet a couple of booktubers there, and I'm super excited to meet them and attend this book event. So there's so much I'm looking forward to this week. I am hoping to knock out a good portion of this TBR honestly this weekend, because I think it would just be kind of fun to relax and be cozy and read a bunch of great books. I know there's going to be reading sprints going on. I am super hyped for this. So I will be back once I've gotten a good start on my reading, provide you with some updates, and in the meantime I'm just going to relax tonight in preparation for the readathon to start tomorrow. Saturday morning. I'm not feeling as rough as I kind of expected I might be. I gave myself painkiller before bed and a Benadryl to help me sleep and deal with whatever reaction I was having, and I woke up mostly just sore with a little bit of a headache, so I am mostly being a bum today, but I did jump into watching some of the reading sprints to kick off the readathon, and I am halfway into my first book. So I'm out about 45% in this Cursed Light by Emily Thied. This is a gifted copy I received from Wednesday Books, and it is again the second book in a duology. I picked up the first book, This Vicious Grace, when I did a weekend challenge where I was reading some books that I've been procrastinating for a really long time, and I had a good time with it. So I'm having a good time with this one as well. One of my chief complaints with the first book is I didn't feel like I got attached to the side characters. The book had kind of a found family aspect, but I didn't really get invested in them or learn who was who among them really to be able to pick up on their distinct voices. I feel like I'm getting a better read on the characters in here because they are traveling along with our 2 main characters, Alessa and Dante, and I do like some of the snarky banter we get out of them as they now know each other pretty well. They've spent a lot of time with each other. They know the ins and outs of each other's relationships and romances and all of these types of things, and that I'm enjoying a lot more, I think, in this book. There's still a lot of mutual pining between our 2 main characters in here because circumstances have their relationship a little bit complicated. Can't really say what those circumstances are without giving spoilers for book 1, which of course I do not want to do. There is definitely an established relationship in this one, but there's still hurdles that they're going to need to overcome. So I'm going to keep reading this one. Honestly, I'm going to take, I think, a nap or at least lay down and watch some TV for a little bit and then come back to this one hopefully later today. I would love to finish this up today to keep on track with what I want to get read this week, but we'll see if that happens. If my headache can kind of ease off, I'd like to get back into my crocheting and listening to the audiobook for this one, and that would make for a nice cozy evening, but we'll see how it goes. I'll check in once I have more things to talk to you about. It's now Sunday evening. I took a while to get another update in. After me saying yesterday morning I was feeling just fine after my vaccines, I started not feeling so fine. So yesterday was pretty much me in bed with some chills and discomfort and just watching YouTube and TV and stuff like that. So today I woke up feeling much better, got back into it, and I do have a couple of updates for you. On the book front, let's see, I finished up this Cursed Light in bed this morning, pretty much just listening to the audiobook. I had about 15% left after I gave up on reading yesterday. And overall, I liked this one. I do think we got to know the side characters better. I do think that we got an interesting kind of plot. It kind of flipped some of the things from the first book around. So we had different characters with different motivations in here where it felt familiar, but it was also a new story. And I liked how it wrapped up. I found myself very easily distracted from this though, and I'm not sure how much that was me not feeling well as I was reading it, or how much it just was this book didn't fully grab me and pull me in. But in the end, I did really like my time with this one. I am glad that I picked it up, and one book down for Romantasyathon. And then from there, I picked up The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen, and this is for my enemies to lovers trope, my date. But honestly, I think this actually could work quite well for the green cover if I wind up running out of time, since I'm feeling a little bit behind on my reading at the moment. But currently I am about, I think 40% of the way in. I'm about here. And that's about 150 pages I've read. I'm not even sure if this is showing up at all in the camera. I can't see from this distance. Kylie, why are we being loud? She has no answer for me. I am enjoying my time with this one. We are following Laura, and she is one of a set of sisters, and they've all been trained basically to go off and marry the king of their enemy. And they are trained to go and do this for their country, for their father. They've been trained to know that this man is their enemy and they're there to take this person down. And of course, things aren't going to go exactly according to plan. We've got the marriage, this arranged marriage between the two countries, states, whatever they are in this world. Very quickly at the beginning of this book, the father leaves her there, and she's not meant to have any contact with her family or her home or anything ever again. But already she's starting to witness things that aren't exactly what she grew up believing. Maybe he and his country are not as evil as he thought. And obviously there is going to be some romance that ensues from this pairing, I assume. And I'm very intrigued. We've got this world. There is this bridge that is the ultimate secret that she's trying to get insights into and take this back. She's very smart. She's playing on the fact that these people, her husband included, don't think much of her abilities, so they're underestimating her ability to figure things out. She's blindfolded in places, but she's smart enough to count footsteps and do things like that. And it seems like it's going very quickly so far, and I'm having a good time, which is great. There's definitely politics in here, so it would be a great one if I can continue this series next month for Realmathon, since one of the prompts that will get me some bonuses next month is to have politics in the book and also a fictional setting. This would be perfect for that. So that's that. And then I figured I would give you a little bit of an update on my crochet. So in my hearts themed vlog that just went up yesterday in the real time as I am recording this, I was doing the granny stitch squares with the hearts at the bottom for the crochet along that I'm doing from Cedar, and it is the Hearts and Flowers crochet along. And so week one was doing all of these granny squares. There's 2 sets of 8 and connecting them all and putting a row on the top and the bottom, and they turned out bigger than they were meant to be, but overall I was happy with how they turned out. And then week 2, we learned to do this ripple or this long wave stitch to go onto it. So this is one panel done of the 2 that I need to do. And then I've just barely started adding the waves onto the next one. So that's what I'm doing as I am listening to the Bridge Kingdom on audio and hanging out Kylie in my lap and my crocheting in my lap. I took a little bit of a break today for a watch along that Monica is doing from A Little Bit of Monica for Lost, and that was a fun break to crochet and do TV for a little bit instead of audiobook. So that's where I'm at the moment. I am behind where I meant to be, but I am feeling a lot better today, and I took care of some filming this morning, which means that tomorrow I have nothing that I absolutely have to do, which is fantastic. So hopefully I will be in the mood for a lot of reading, a lot of crocheting, and we'll see where the day takes me. So I will probably check in with you in the morning and let you know what I got up to for the rest of this evening. It is now Monday morning, and I stayed up way too late last night watching some TV in bed, and caffeinated probably a little too late yesterday too. So I'm getting a little bit of a late start this morning, but that's okay. It is Monday, it is a holiday, I have the day off, and really not too much to get done. I keep adding things to my to-do list, but none of them are 100% mandatory, aside from downloading some videos off my camera into my computer so I can start working on them. So that is really all my plans are for the day. I'm hoping to finish up my crochet along for the week. I made good progress yesterday, adding rows of wavies onto the second panel, and I think I have 6 more rows to go. And it's really quick going at this point. I've got the rhythm down pretty well, so I think I can finish that off today and actually be done with this week's a day early, which will be nice. And then I have some reading updates for you as well. I finished up the Bridge Kingdom as I was crocheting yesterday. I wound up consuming all of this on audio and really enjoyed it. It's a pretty good audiobook. There's a little bit of production value when it changes chapters. There's sound effects a little bit, but generally just a good time on audio, and I had a fantastic time with the book overall. In terms of the trope being enemies to lovers, this wasn't necessarily quite as slow a burn as maybe I would have preferred. It is a very short book, and we get a lot of aggression fairly quickly, but it's not immediate, so I was okay with that. And it's not overly steamy. It has good world building, good politics. I think some of the twists and turns in terms of how the aggression goes were quite predictable, but I did not mind that. And it ended in a way that I really liked, that puts more tension back into the story, back into the relationship, and leaves great room for what's going to happen next in book 2. And I am really hoping I can get to that sooner rather than later. I don't have the Kindle copy of it, so I would probably otherwise take it on my vacation with me if I could get the Kindle copy in time, but I am definitely planning to put this on my TBR sooner rather than later. And then since I finished that one up a little bit before I wanted to finish my crocheting last night, I did start my next book, and I decided to go with This Will Be Fun by E.B. Asher. Thankfully, even though it said I had a 6 wait for the audiobook for this one, the audiobook came through, and I put it on last night. This one so far is just okay. I'm not super thrilled, and I think after really enjoying Bridge Kingdom, this one is not going to reach that level, but it is entertaining. As this one opens, there's a band of people who have gathered together. They're about to save the realm, and they are successful, we find out, but one of their party, the great hero among them, did not survive. And there's a lot of feelings tied to that. It's now 10 years later, and we've got people feeling guilty. One of the people we're following is this person's sister. One of these people just feels guilty for the way that he died, which we don't fully know yet. And we also have relationships in here that have taken different turns. Like I said, we've jumped forward in time 10 years, and someone is getting married, and she has invited all of these heroes from from throughout the lands to come back together for the wedding. One of them lives in absolute isolation, but an assassin was hired basically to come and get her and kidnap her and bring her back. They have a history together. They were both at odds and also lovers along the way. And then we also have another woman as the book opens. She is drinking quite a bit after her divorce. She has to break into her ex's house to go find something that was left there that her husband didn't give back. And then she runs into the man that she used to love, and they have split apart. There's going to be a second chance romance out of the two of them, and so on and so forth. So it's a little bit of a silly good time. We have these characters, they're known as the Four, the heroes. They have songs written about them and legends written about them and how they saved the realm. And I'm not quite sure what our plot is yet. I'm about, I'd say, almost around 100 pages in. So I haven't gotten really into the meat of it quite yet, but everyone's kind of in process, in travel mode. There's some dangers along the way. There's some run-ins with people they don't want to run into, and it's entertaining. It's fun so far. So I don't foresee myself DNFing this one. I don't foresee myself loving this one. It's feeling like it's going to be a 3-star read, where Bridge Kingdom was definitely a solid 4. So I am looking forward to continuing that series. I don't think it'll happen this week. I'm feeling a little more caught up on my plans for reading this weekend. If I can plan to finish this today and then get started on the next book, that I will be feeling pretty good about things. So I'm gonna get some coffee, and then I'm gonna do some crocheting and put my audiobook back on, and I will check in with you later on. Okay, it's now Monday evening, which means my long weekend is winding down. Took a shower, relaxing, watching a little TV, gonna grab some dinner, relax a little bit more, go to bed. Those are the plans, but I do have a couple updates for you first. One, I did finish up This Will Be Fun, and generally, I'd say truth in advertising. It was a fun enough time. It was an okay read. I think it just wasn't quite the style book for me. We basically have 2 character pairings in here in terms of what the romance is, and both are a second chance romance, which just is never going to be my favorite trope. Both the relationships kind of grow along the same trajectory to the extent that both just happen to reach the point of discussing feelings and jumping into bed during the same break in the action, which is just not my favorite style. In terms of the fantasy in here, I like some of the aspects of it. I liked the kind of fun nature of the idea of these people being heroes and having people following them around and getting autographs, and there's songs about them and lore and statues and all this stuff. That's just a fun gimmick going on in here, and I did really enjoy that unique aspect of this. I do feel like this felt like reading the sequel when you haven't read book 1. We eventually get the story somewhat of what happened on that first adventure, what made them heroes, what happened, what went wrong, but I don't feel like I quite got enough depth out of it. And the ending does something that just kind of made me a little bit mad. I got to a point I'm like, oh no, if X happens, I'm going to be really mad at this story. And X happened. Of course X happened. And can't say anything about it because obvious spoiler, but it just felt too easy. There were changes in what characters could do that just kind of came out in a very convenient way. So this wound up a low 3-star read for me. But while I was reading that, I did finish off my second panel, and I am now ready for week 3, which will come out on Wednesday. So I had a little bit of a break in my crocheting. So Kylie just ran full speed into my tripod. Thankfully didn't take it out, but definitely, I'm sure, changed the camera angle. So let's give this another try. As I was saying, I am putting down the crochet for a couple days, waiting for the next pattern to come out, and I switched over to assembling furniture because apparently today was productivity day, and I assembled an end table to go next to my couch, and I still need to order one more because I didn't want to buy 2 of them without knowing if I like them in person. So that's my next project. I'm also going to be buying a new couch. We're doing a whole transformation of a few things in my living room at the moment. Anyway, while I was doing that, I needed something to listen to, So I launched into my next book, which is City of Mirth and Malice, and this is by Alexis L. Menard, and I've been really looking forward to reading this after I read House of Bane and Blood in my Reading Faves of My Faves video, and this is one I ordered it before I even finished book 1. I really wanted to pick up book 2, and this one is off to another fantastic start. I was quickly back in with the tension of how things ended in book 1 and eager to keep going in this. I think I made it about 30% in, maybe something like that, maybe a little bit shy of that, but this is one that is really, really good on audio as well. So I did pick up a copy of the audiobook. Obviously I have the print too, so I can go back and forth a little bit as I'm relaxing before bed this evening, and my goal is to continue on with this. At this point we kind of have an established relationship. It's pretty strong, and I really like the characters together, and the fact that both of them are very strong in and of themselves, but together they work well together. There's good banter even though the relationship at this point is pretty established, and I went into this with high hopes because the people I know and trust have loved it just as much as book 1, if not more in some cases potentially, so it's living up to expectations so far. So unfortunately tomorrow is a work day. Do have to go back to work. Not looking forward to that by any means. No one's surprised, but I will be listening to my book at least for my commute. I don't know that it's one that I necessarily want to multitask with work. I'm not sure what I'm going to be reading during the day tomorrow, but I look forward to hopefully finishing this book up tomorrow and moving on to the next. So since Kylie is clearly in the mood to be causing chaos and play, I'm going to go ahead and play some fetch with her, get some dinner for both of us, and start to wind down. So I'll check back in with you probably tomorrow, and we'll see how Romantasyathon reading is going. Happy Wednesday all. It is morning time. I need to get going and get moving and get to work. But before I do, I wanted to give you an update. So I finished up City of Mirth and Malice last night and had a fantastic time with this one. It does get a little extra steamy, I would say, compared to the first book, but still not overly much for me who doesn't read a ton of smut, and I really like the relationship in here. I really like the banter between the characters even with the established relationship. I really like how both characters are really strong and really active, and it's not always one saving the other. There's a lot of mutual going on in here, and there are definitely some twists and turns I didn't expect fully or questioned and wondered what was going on, and all of that had me really loving this one. It was a strong 4.5 to a 5 for me. I really enjoy this series. I am not quite sure. I know I said, I think at one point I thought this was a duology, and it is called a duology, but I've also seen talk of a book 3, so I'm assuming maybe there's more coming in this world, or maybe a spin-off duology type of thing with it. I'm not entirely sure. I will have to find that out, but this was a good time. So while I had the evening off from my crochet along, I decided to pick up one of my older projects. It was really close to being done, especially in the sense that I was down to only one more ball of yarn. So I wanted an audiobook to keep reading, and since Rebel Witch officially came out yesterday, I was able to get the audiobook for it and start listening last night. This one is, again, the sequel to Heartless Hunter or Crimson Moth by Kristen Cicerelli, and this is one I'm highly anticipating. It's a buddy read with Mel and Eleanor Reed's Patreon, so this is one that I was able to kind of chat with people as I was reading it last night and having a lot of fun. This is just a good time. Is it a perfect book? No. Does it have plot holes? I think so. Definitely some plot conveniences as well, but it's just such an easy one to sit there and listen to and giggle at occasionally and just have a good time with. I think the miscommunication in here, intentional and otherwise, should bother me more than it does, but for some reason I'm just enjoying it enough that I can turn off the part of my brain that's usually really annoyed by that, and the two main characters in here are circling each other as they were in the first book, and there's still a lot of intentional misdirection but also just misinterpreting what's going on. I'm not sure where exactly we are going to get a relationship resolution from these two. I'm hoping it's not too easy, but I guess we'll see. I made it a little bit past 50%. I think it was like 54%. And honestly, the print in here is pretty gosh darn big, so it makes sense how I was able to fly through this so quickly. But the new part of my crochet along came out today, so I will be hopefully working on that this evening and listening to the rest of Rebel Witch. But for now, unfortunately, I need to get going to work. It's now Thursday morning. I did some reading last night, some crocheting last night. I finished the first 2 of my flowers for this next week of the crochet along. I've got 4 more to do in this particular style, and then 6 to do in a different style, and then connections and stuff, so I still have a ways to go, and a busy weekend ahead. But thankfully, my meeting this morning takes me across Los Angeles and doesn't start till 10:30, so I can't go to the office first, so I do get to leave the house a little bit late today and have a little bit of a lazy cozy morning before I take off, and that'll get this last day of the week for me off to a good start, hopefully. But in reading updates, last night I did finish up Rebel Witch, and I have mixed thoughts on this one. Ultimately, I had a lot of fun with this one. It was one I didn't want to stop. I wanted to keep reading. There are definitely some great lines in here. There's some great bantery moments, but my logic brain has some issues with it. There's a few things that I felt like were plot holes. There definitely were a lot of things that I felt like were plot conveniences, certainly. And things kind of turned up just at the right moment. People turned up at just the right moment. And I, for whatever reason, was okay with it in the sense that I saw it. It bothered me a little bit, but I was having too much fun to really care that much. There's also a ton of miscommunication in here. And I think in the first book it worked better for me because there was a very intentional cat and mouse game going on between the witch and the witch hunter. And will he catch her? Will she escape? And they are very much lying to each other outright. And for whatever reason, that worked better for me than in here, where they're constantly misunderstanding. They're second guessing each other's feelings. And again, this is something that I think my ability to turn off my logic brain, my picking apart brain, my miscommunicating, hating brain, it worked well enough for me to just kind of say, okay, this is happening, and go from there. It was a ton of fun to read. It was a ton of fun to talk about with the buddy read going on. And now Kylie's downstairs talking to the neighbor critters or something. There's apparently a lot that goes on in my neighborhood right at this hour of the day. But that's neither here nor there. So I better go figure out what she's up to. In the end, I think this one's like a 3.5 that I'm rounding to a 4. I think there's just stuff that I would have liked to see fleshed out a little bit more. Things slowed down occasionally a little more developed on page. Even just the start of this book, we kind of start mid-action. We meet a new character that I felt like I should have already known. And things like that, I think, were happening throughout. A little bit too much for me to rate any higher than that, but it is getting rounded up to a 4, I think, just due to how much fun I had with it, I think. So, we'll see. I have one more book that I definitely want to get to. I actually started to Shatter the Night last night, but I didn't make it very far in, so I don't have a ton of initial thoughts. The characters are kind of all mostly in different places at the start of this book, and so we're not seeing kind of the fun part of the world building and the character moments that I enjoyed in the first book, and I'm hoping we get back to that a little bit more in this one. So I'm gonna get to reading a little bit, doing crochet, have some coffee before I have to take off for work, and I'll check back in with you once I have some thoughts on this one. It's now Friday morning. I have an appointment to get to. I have the day off work to take care of a few things, and I have been doing a little crocheting, playing fetch with Kylie, and just having a relaxing morning, which has been nice, but I do have to start getting out into the world. So wanted to give you an update that I am halfway into To Shatter the Night. And I'm having a decent time with this one. I think I liked book one better. The setting for book one was more so in the mist, in the weirdness, and this one we're more so back out in the world, still dealing with everything that happened at the end of the former book. This one, the main characters are kind of spread out quite a bit, so we're missing kind of some of those interactions, and when we do see interactions, it's much more the sweet, emotional interactions than the fun banter that I want more so in a romance story. But like I said, we're still having a good time. This world is a world where the sun has disappeared, basically. The sun goddess has left or been banished, or something has been going on, and our main characters are trying to bring the sun back, because of course without the sun they can't produce enough food, they can't support everyone, people are starving, it's a bad time, there's disease, there's just general darkness in addition to literal darkness in this world. And I really do enjoy the interplay of light and dark and good and evil and all of those kind of dichotomies going on in here. The main characters I feel like could use a little more depth outside of their feelings for each other, but I think we're starting to get some more of that. We're starting to see some bigger moments and characters interacting. I do like some of the friendships in here, the relationship reveals, we're seeing a few of those things going on, and I'm looking forward to continuing on with this. This is my final book on my set TBR, so it's looking good to finish in time for the ball tomorrow. So I will check back in with you either tonight or sometime tomorrow with final thoughts on this one. So I got my haircut, ready for the ball, and I finished up my final book to prepare for the ball as well. And to shatter the night, in the end, I enjoyed myself with this one. I don't think I was quite as hooked on this one as I was in the first book. The first book had a lot more, I felt like, atmosphere to it. They were in the mist, they were dealing with the weirdness of that setting. This one, they are more so out in the world. They're still working on the same objectives and dealing with the consequences of what they learned and everything that happened in book one, but I felt like it felt a little prolonged to me. Like we'd be moving along, we'd get to a resolution almost, we'd get characters back together, and then something else would split them apart. And I did like the way that both of our main characters did wind up having to step up for each other, and that it wasn't a one-sided type of thing where the guy's always saving the girl or vice versa. So in the end, this is a duology that I very much enjoyed. This one, though, is more of a 3.5. I think I gave the first book a solid 4 or even a 4.5. I don't remember. Maybe blowing it up a little bit more in my head. But regardless, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous book. And I had a good time with it. I think it was a unique world. It was a unique setup. Some of the twists and turns I did see coming along the path of the duology, but overall, I think this was a good time. So with that done, I'm ready to dance the night away. I actually am filming this Sunday. The readathon ended yesterday. I just was so exhausted after I went out, got my hair cut, spent some time with my dad, and then came home and I just crashed last night. I finished my book before the readathon ended. I just didn't get the energy up to come and film. So it is now Sunday morning. I'm very excited because I am going off today to continue the Romantasy theme, and I have an author event for Penn Cole, who of course wrote Spark of the Everflame, which I really enjoyed when I read it as part of reading Faves of My Faves vlog, and I am excited to go today. I will get the second installment in the series today, which I'm planning to maybe take with me on vacation next week, but we shall see. So I'll probably insert a little bit of b-roll here from the event and go ahead and include that with this vlog, because even though Romantasyathon is over, my Romantasy week hasn't quite ended just yet.
Hello, Los Angeles. How amazing does Penn look?
Cut to weird lighting. It is now Sunday afternoon, and I had a fantastic time at the Penn Cole event at the Grove this afternoon. We got to see her in conversation with Callie Hart, and it was just a really fun time hearing both of them talk and getting to meet some book friends that I've never met in person before but have been talking to online for ages, with Claire at Claire's Neverland Books and Bree at Four Paws on a Book. Got to walk around a little bit, chat with them, poke around the Grove a little bit, have some lunch. It was a fantastic time, but I'm ready to kick my feet up and kind of relax for the rest of the evening before the week launches. Lighting in here is just really bad at this hour in the afternoon, clearly. But I did get my copy of Glow of the Everflame by Penn Cole. I will be hopefully reading this on my vacation. I'm not taking the big heavy book with me, but I do have it downloaded to my Kindle, so it's one I think that would be fantastic to read by the pool. And since I don't actually own a copy of Quicksilver yet, I do have the new edition pre-ordered and the sequel pre-ordered because I really loved Quicksilver as well. I did get a nice bookmark, which Callie Hart was very nice to sign for me in place of having a book in hand today. So I had a lot of fun this week reading my Romantasy books and extending the Romantasyathon just a tad today with a Romantasy event and getting to meet some fellow Romantasy readers, and it was a good time had by all. So let me know in the comments below, were you participating in Romantasyathon? What's been a recent favorite Romantasy read? Do you have any that you would recommend to me? I would love to hear it. And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, leave me a fire emoji for Glow of the Everflame, because you know, flames. If you could hit that like button below, I would surely appreciate it. And subscribe if you're interested in more of my Romantasy reads, more of my vacation reading, and more of my bookish content in general. But for now, I'll leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.